The bond between Alex and me wasn't forged in a classroom or a neighborhood. It was welded in the blue-white glare of computer monitors at 3 a.m. We were co-conspirators in the grand heist of creating something from nothing. Our shared dream was a company we'd christened Nexus Innovations, and its flagship project was Aether, a piece of software designed to revolutionize cloud-based collaboration. I was the architect, the one who lived in the labyrinthine corridors of code, while Alex was the visionary, the one who could sell the dream to anyone who would listen. Our friendship was a perfect algorithm. He'd burst into my apartment, arms laden with takeout containers, and paint pictures with his words, of venture capitalists begging to invest, of sprawling office campuses, of a future where Aether was as ubiquitous as email. I, in turn, would translate his vibrant visions into elegant, functional reality. We were two halves of a whole, and I believed, with the naive certainty of a true believer, that our partnership was unbreakable. The last good day was a Tuesday in April. I'd just cracked a particularly vicious bug in Aether's core sync protocol. It was a breakthrough, the kind that made the 17-hour days feel worthwhile. I called Alex, my voice buzzing with triumph. "I did it," I said, leaning back in my worn-out office chair. "The latency issue is gone. It's perfect." I could hear the smile in his voice. "Liam, you magnificent bastard. I knew you would. This is it. This is the final piece. I'm scheduling the pitch with Sterling Ventures for next week. Get ready, my friend. Our lives are about to change." We talked for an hour, spinning fantasies of our imminent success. He was supposed to come over that weekend to celebrate and strategize. He never showed. The ghosting began not with a bang, but with a profound and unsettling silence. My Saturday text, "Still on for tonight," floated in the digital ether, marked delivered but unanswered. Sunday's call went straight to voicemail, the mailbox full. By Monday, a cold knot of dread was tightening in my stomach. I told myself he was busy, that his phone was broken, that a family emergency had come up. I cycled through a dozen rational explanations, each one thinner than the last. I drove by his apartment. His car was gone. I talked to our mutual acquaintances. They hadn't heard from him either. It was as if Alex had been a phantom all along, a collective hallucination we'd all shared. The silence stretched from days into a week, then 2. The hurt was a physical thing, a hollow ache in my chest. It was followed by a wave of crushing self-doubt. What had I done? Did I say something wrong in that last call? Was my friendship so disposable that it could be discarded without a single word of explanation? The answer arrived 3 weeks later, not in a text or a call, but on a tech news blog. The headline read, "Elysian Dynamics, led by charismatic founder Alex Vance, secures $5 million in seed funding for their groundbreaking collaboration platform, Zephyr." I stared at the screen, the words blurring through a sudden film of tears. The article featured a glossy photo of Alex, beaming, shaking hands with the very same venture capitalists from Sterling Ventures he was supposed to be pitching with me, and Zephyr. The description was a thinly veiled, slightly repackaged version of our Aether. He hadn't just left. He had taken our shared soul, polished it up, and sold it as his own. The betrayal was so absolute, so monumental, that it eclipsed the hurt and left something else in its place. A cold, hard, diamond-bright fury. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of my computer, surrounded by the ghosts of our shared dream, and I made a vow. He had stolen my past. I would own his future. The next 8 months were a blur of rage-fueled productivity. The pain of Alex's betrayal became my crucible. Every memory of his laughter, every shared dream, became fuel for my engine. I dismantled Aether, piece by piece, and rebuilt it from the ground up. I worked with a singular monastic focus. I renamed it Synapse. I kept the core architecture that had been my work, but I made it stronger, faster, and more secure than anything I had planned with Alex. I found a small angel investor who was more interested in solid tech than a flashy pitch, and secured a modest but functional round of funding. Synapse wasn't flashy like Zephyr. I didn't have Alex's charisma to generate buzz. Instead, I built its reputation brick by brick on the foundation of unshakable reliability. I courted small and medium-sized businesses, offering them a product that simply worked. While Zephyr was grabbing headlines with its celebrity endorsements and sleek marketing, Synapse was quietly integrating itself into the essential workflow of 100 different companies. I was no longer the quiet coder in the background. I had been forced to become a CEO, a strategist, a survivor. The soft, trusting parts of me had been cauterized, leaving behind scar tissue that was tougher than steel. Then, on a cold Tuesday in December, 8 months and a lifetime after Alex vanished, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Liam, it's Alex. I know it's been a while. I need to talk to you. It's urgent, please." I stared at the message, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was a strange mix of emotions. A jolt of the old phantom pain, a surge of vindictive curiosity, and a deep, chilling calm. The power dynamic had shifted. He was no longer the gatekeeper of my future. I was the master of my own. I let him stew for 3 hours. Finally, I texted back a single cold sentence. "My office. Tomorrow. Kale patta money." My office was on the 24th floor of a downtown skyscraper. It wasn't the sprawling campus Alex had dreamed of, but it was mine. The view of the city was stark and beautiful. When my assistant showed Alex in, I didn't stand up. I watched him walk across the polished concrete floor, a man I once knew intimately, now a stranger. The last 8 months had not been kind to him. The charismatic, cocksure visionary was gone. The man standing before me was a ghost of a different sort. Pale, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and gnawing anxiety. His expensive suit hung on him as if it were borrowed. "Liam," he began, his voice raspy. "Thanks for seeing me." I gestured to the chair opposite my desk. It was a deliberately uncomfortable, minimalist piece of furniture. "I'm a busy man, Alex. What's so urgent?" He sat, perching on the edge of the seat as if ready to bolt. He couldn't meet my eyes, focusing instead on a point on the wall just over my shoulder. "It's Zephyr," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. We're in trouble. Big trouble." I remained silent, my face an impassive mask. I let the silence hang in the air, heavy and suffocating. "We scaled too fast," he continued, his hands twisting in his lap. "The user base exploded after the last marketing push, and the back end, it can't handle the load. Data packets are getting corrupted, user accounts are being wiped, entire projects are vanishing. It's a cascade failure. Our biggest client is threatening to pull out and sue us for data loss. We'll be bankrupt by the end of the month." A slow, cold smile touched my lips. I knew it. I knew it would happen. In his rush to get to market, he had prioritized the flashy user interface, his domain, and neglected the robust, scalable architecture that had been mine. He had built a beautiful mansion on a foundation of sand. "The core sync protocol," I said, my voice quiet but cutting. "You never understood how it worked, did you? You just copied the early build and bolted a pretty face onto it. You didn't account for exponential stress loads." His head snapped up, his eyes finally meeting mine. They were filled with a desperate, pleading shame. "No," he whispered. "I didn't. I thought I could hire people to figure it out, but they can't. They said the foundational code is a black box, too complex to patch without a complete teardown. A teardown that would take 6 months. We have 2 weeks. He leaned forward, his composure finally shattering. Please, Liam. I know I don't deserve it. God, I know. What I did was unforgivable. I was arrogant and I was a fool. But I'm begging you. You're the only one who can fix this. Name your price. Equity, cash, anything. Just help me? Here it was. The moment I had replayed in my mind 1,000 times, in 1,000 different ways. The moment of my revenge. In my angriest fantasies, I had imagined laughing in his face, telling him to burn, watching his empire crumble from my high tower. But looking at the broken man in front of me, that felt too simple, too merciful. A quick death was not what he deserved. He deserved to understand the true cost of what he had thrown away. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, turning my back on him. I looked down at the city below, a sprawling network of lights and motion. The price isn't cash, Alex, I said, my voice resonating in the quiet room. I have plenty of that, and your equity is worthless. I heard him swallow hard. Then what? What do you want? I turned back to face him, my expression unreadable. I want a confession. A confession? I'm confessing right now. I stole the idea. I screwed you over. No, I interrupted, holding up a hand. Not to me. I want a public statement, a press release, issued by Elysian Dynamics. In it, you will detail the architectural failures of Zephyr. You will state, explicitly, that these failures stem from a flawed design and an incomplete understanding of the core technology. And you will announce that to save your client's data, Elysian Dynamics is entering into an emergency partnership with a company that has a superior, stable architecture. He stared at me, comprehension dawning in his eyes, followed by horror. You want me to publicly humiliate myself? To admit that Synapse is better? Synapse is better, I stated flatly. That's a fact, not an opinion. This isn't about humiliation. It's about truth. He looked like he was going to be sick. And if I do this, you'll fix the code? No, I said, delivering the final blow. I will not fix Zephyr. Zephyr is a lost cause, a monument to your hubris. What I will do is offer your clients a rescue package, a seamless free migration from Zephyr's failing platform to Synapse. We'll absorb your user base. My team will handle the data transfer. He slumped in his chair, the color draining from his face. You want to gut my company. Take my clients. I want to save them, I corrected him, which is more than you were capable of doing. As for Elysian Dynamics, and you, Alex, I have one final offer. I walked back to my desk and slid a single sheet of paper across its surface. It was an acquisition agreement. Synapse will acquire the assets of Elysian Dynamics, what's left of them, to ensure a smooth transition for the clients. The price, I said, tapping a finger on the paper, is $1. He stared at the document as if it were a venomous snake. His dream, his $5 million company, reduced to a single dollar. It was the ultimate indignity. And me, he whispered, his voice barely audible. What happens to me? This was the masterstroke. This was the revenge that mattered. I have an opening, junior product analyst. You'll report to my head of development. No equity, standard salary. You'll be one of 200 employees. You'll have a chance to learn how to build a company properly, from the ground up, the right way. He would have to walk the halls of the company built on the ashes of his betrayal. He would see me in meetings, not as a partner, but as the distant, powerful CEO. He would have to watch every single day as the dream he tried to steal flourished in my hands, not his. He would live with his failure, breathing it in like office air conditioning, for as long as he could stand it. Tears welled in his eyes and streamed down his cheeks, silent tracks of utter defeat. He looked from the contract to my face, searching for any glimmer of the old Liam, the forgiving friend, the partner. He found none. He found only the cold, hard reflection of his own choices. He picked up the pen from my desk. His hand trembled so violently he could barely hold it. For a long, agonizing minute, he just sat there, the pen hovering over the signature line. Then, with a shuddering sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all his collapsed ambitions, he signed his name. He pushed the paper back to me and stood up, a completely broken man. He didn't say another word. He just turned and walked out of my office, his footsteps silent on the concrete floor. I watched him go, then picked up the contract. I didn't feel the elation I had expected. There was no triumphant surge, no joyous peak. There was only a quiet, profound finality. A sense of balance restored. The ghost that had haunted me for 8 months was finally gone, not exorcised by forgiveness, but entombed by consequence. My revenge wasn't a moment of fury. It was a lifetime sentence that he had just willingly begun to serve. And I, finally, was free.